how does one balance the desires of various stakeholders in a football club? The owners, the fans, the players, etc. Is it more difficult to run a football club than any other business when the supporters always want the club to buy the latest fad in footballers, whatever the price?
Well, as a business, football's quite complicated because you have lots of different small businesses actually. A football club like Arsenal runs all kinds of different businesses, from retail to licensing to the stadium itself, and across broadcast we have a media group and so on and so on and so on. So it's quite fragmented and complex. But as a football club, when you're talking about stakeholders in football and all of the different people that are following the club and all of their demands, you're always involved in a balancing act. In the end, everything you do, everything we do at Arsenal is unified behind a vision, and the vision is to make our fans proud. And that pride is what we're working towards every day. And so there is one major stakeholder, which are our fans. That's the most important stakeholder we have. But you're always balancing because it might be possible to make fans proud for a year or two, but how do you do that consistently over the long term? How do you build the club so that there is future pride, not even just for this generation, but for the next generation of Arsenal fans? Obviously, you can go out and spend as much money as you like, as much as you can afford at any time, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to be acting as a responsible custodian for the club, and really developing the club for the next generation of Arsenal fans. So you're always involved a little bit in that balancing act. And of course, in football, there are massive, massive short-term pressures. That's not a bad thing, because we also have to think about the short term, but we also have to think about the long term, and that's a balance.
So if finishing lower in the table would be more financially positive than finishing first, how would you, as the CEO, make your decision to balance out the profit and income and the need of a trophy and the pressure from the fans?
Well, that's very simple. I mean, you want to win. So our objective is to win, but our objective actually is a little bit higher than that, because when we think about pride as a vision, at Arsenal we have always wanted to win, but also to win with style, to win in a certain way, to win by conducting ourselves the right way. So it's even higher than winning, but there's no conflict between winning and wanting to be successful as a football club, and also being responsible. To me, the two go together. And in fact, it's those clubs that overspend, that act irresponsibly, that give in to short-term pressure unwisely, who jeopardize their club's long-term success. Again, it comes down to that balance. There is a short-term pressure, and that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. We put it on ourselves. We have a short-term pressure every week, every day. But we also balance that with how we're going to develop the club so that the next generation of Arsenal fans can have a club that represents them in a way that brings them pride. And that's something that we think about a lot.
So there seems to be three models of major club ownership. The cooperative model Arsenal uses, the billionaire-owned teams like Manchester City and Chelsea, and the fan-owned teams like Barcelona. Is there room for all of these three major club ownerships, or do you think that certain approaches are better for the health of the Premier League?
Well, there's certainly room for different approaches and different ownership models. The game has developed a lot in the last 15 to 20 years. The amounts of money at the top end in particular have grown dramatically. So what that means is the pool of possible owners has become narrower and narrower. And especially if the only way you can be successful in football is by losing a fortune and spending massive amounts of money, that's not very attractive to many individual owners or corporate owners or even nation-state owners. You know, that's not really why people want to get involved in sport, just to have a race for whoever loses the most money wins. We've got to, I think about the health of the game. What would be more healthy is that we have an environment in which football clubs don't have to lose huge amounts of money every year, that they don't give in to the pressures of the public environment we're in. But they're able to think about developing football clubs in a healthy way, developing football in a healthy way. That will be great for fans. And the real question is, how do we create an environment in which that can happen? Because if we do, then we actually begin to widen the pool of owners, because lots of people want to be involved in football. Lots of people would love to be owners of a football club if it meant they didn't have to lose their shirt. Lots of good owners who could bring fantastic things to the game. So my view is, if we can find ways to make football more responsible, to make it more financially viable, then you get better ownership. And better ownership is good for football, and it's good for fans of football.